I've been wandering around this week, just wandering around. Wandering around in my life, and I've been thinking, I've been asking, I've been wondering. What does the world need right now? Sometimes I just ponder that. What does the world need? I realize I'm in a particularly privileged and humbling and beautiful spot, and that is that I have the blessing and the humble responsibility of being the leader of this community, which means on Sunday mornings, I have the opportunity to do this, which is no small something. You know, we come together, and my prayer every Sunday is that I just have something to say that's a benefit to you. Something that's a benefit to you. And so I hope what I have to share this morning is of benefit to you, and that your life is enriched because of it. And it's this sacred dance, because what I know is that my life is enriched because of you. My life is enriched because of you. In being here and having this experience on Sunday mornings, and then at classes during the week, and however in other ways that we find ourselves. And so in my wonderings and wanderings this week, what occurred to me, what the world needs are more mystics.
Yes.
The world needs more mystics. And as Ernest Holmes said, no one's more special than another. We all have the capacity to be a mystic. And that there have been some people over the course of time who have caught their insight or caught their inspiration and put pen to paper, or have delivered great oratory, and somehow it's been captured and passed down through generations. But do we know, can we listen to what Ernest Holmes is saying and hear it and understand that, oh, each one of us have the opportunity to be a mystic in our own lives as well. And it's not something that necessarily has to be earth-shattering, right? It doesn't have to be that we fundamentally change the arc of human consciousness because of our insight. But what it does mean is that I become more free the more I lean into the idea that I could be a mystic too. And when I say I certainly mean all of us. We understand that at this point. But the dispensation of divine intelligence isn't reserved for but a few, but to anyone who's willing to stop and listen. What is a mystic? A mystic is one who communicates with the divine presence. A mystic is one who hears. And then more than hearing, there's a willingness that sometimes brings us to our knees to live it, and to share it. So my first question to you this morning is, do you believe that you can be a mystic? Good. Now what I need from you, and what you need from me, is to practice it, to be a mystic, one that communes. The information flow is intense these days, isn't it? There's a podcast for everything, right? There's a news show for everything. There's information flowing from every direction, and sometimes in our laziness, sometimes we're not spiritually engaged enough, sometimes in my laziness, all I do is listen to the prevailing wind and the chit-chat that's in it. And I don't turn off the noise and listen to the stillness. A few of the mystics have put it like this, their experience of the presence of God. Hafiz said it like this: I am the whole. And I invite you to consider this, the consciousness from which this was expressed lives, moves, and has its being within each one of us. So can these words be true for you as well? Hafiz said this: I am the whole in a flute that the Christ's breath moves through. Listen to the music. Say it again. I am the whole in the flute that the Christ's, what is the Christ? The Christ means thank you. The anointed one's breath moves through. I am the hole in a flute that the Christ's breath moves through. Listen to the music. I need you to be a music maker. You need me to be a music maker. Rumi said it this way: I have been looking for God for so long, only to realize God was the one looking through my eyes. We look far and wide for God, don't we? The next pilgrimage is going to be the one. I'm going to find God on the next pilgrimage. When I walk that sacred road in Japan that somehow has been calling my name, there's this walk. It's a loop. It goes through. It's on a. Yes, I'm going on an aside here. I'm gonna follow it, Gene, this morning. I'm gonna follow it. I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna obey. There's an island in Japan and it's got 88 temples, and you can do this loop, and it takes like months to do this loop. And it's called, I have this book. It's the 88 temples. You can visit 88 temples in Japan. Walk around this island. I swear, once I do that, I will have found God. You understand? You understand, right? When I go to Scotland in October, that's where God lives, right? Where else does God live? In my refrigerator? In my prayer book? Right? God lives with that person that has all of the answers. They always do have all the answers. Does God live on the TV screen? Sometimes, right? Rumi says, I've been looking for God for so long only to realize God was the one looking through my eyes. That's a mystic. Can I get myself out of the way and realize that there's a presence that lives at the center of me, at the center of you? That's the presence and the power and the love of the Spirit, the love of God that's already right where I am. Sri Ramakrishna said this: the winds of grace are always blowing, but you have to raise the sail. The winds of grace are always blowing, but you have to raise your sail. And then Teresa of Avila said it like this: God is closer to us than water is to a fish. Ask the fish about water. It's just something we live in. It's something we live in. It's the presence. It's the energy. What did George Lucas and Steven Spielberg call it? They called it the force. It's there. People have been talking about it for thousands and thousands since humanity could first conceive of it. There's a mystical mist that we live in the midst of. It's a presence that we live in the midst of. But more than living in the midst of it, it is who we are. It's been said that we don't have a soul, but we live within the soul. And this then, gang, becomes our practice. How do I see the unseeable, know the unknowable? In some sort of other ancient scripture that I did not write down, it says, the Tao that can be explained is not the Tao at all. Something to that effect. And so each one of us have a unique path that we get to go on the adventure of to hopefully perceive this presence not for somebody else, but for myself, that I may then live with a greater love, live with a greater freedom, live with a greater willingness to serve, you see. I don't want to find God so that then I can tell somebody else how to find it, because that's how I found it. And that's what religion's been doing for thousands and thousands of years, is telling somebody else how they can find it. It's one of the downfalls of an organized structure of religion. If you just do it this way, the way we did it, we'll find it. But there's so many unique paths, and what we must do is individually find our own walk. We're not all here to be a flute. Someone's here to be a trombone. Someone's here to be a bass drum. Someone's here to be a violin. Someone's here to be an oboe. We must find our unique instrument. For Hafiz, it was a flute. Who am I? So we looked about a few months. So how do we become a mystic? Talked a few months ago about fidelity to our spiritual practices. Fidelity to our spiritual practices. A willingness to commit to the practices that have us consistently and constantly engaged with our spirit. Ernest Holmes said, "This is not easy work." Spiritual masters are only individuals. A master is someone who's really good at their craft. So what is a spiritual master? Is one who's really good at listening. And then a willingness to put their own unique spin on it. But they're the master of their own life, not the master of your life. Right? Look at what I'm pointing at, not the person pointing. What are we pointing at? So how do we become a mystic? There are a few practices involved with becoming a mystic that I want to share. And these aren't, just because we talk about something doesn't mean everything else is off the table, right? Everything's true all at the same time because we live in an infinite universe. Just because I take Cerrillos to get from the south end to the north end, or I think it's from the west end to the east end, actually, there's many different roads to take, and each one of us are going to take a different road. So these are just 4 practices that we can engage in to become a mystic of our own lives. And why would we want to engage in challenging work? Why would we want to spend time in stillness and silence when we have our phones on us all the time? Information. I'm fiending. Most of the time out of that experience, we don't get a sense of freedom out of that, do we? And I'm making fun of myself. I got to eat you. I want to eat you. Information. Ooh. There's something stimulating about it, right? And we won't know how stimulated we could possibly be by our spiritual nature until we give it a shot. How stimulated we could be by the spirit within us, by that great cosmic love that's within us, that bottomless, infinite something that we can find more of all the time, that presence and power and love. We won't know what's possible until we go as far as we can and then realize we can keep going. And then realize we can keep going and feel the constraints of a current paradigm start to fall away, and the openness that comes with continuing to look and continuing to explore. Why would someone way back in the day when there was the world isn't round, the world is flat, you're going to put a sailboat in the water and you're going to sail, and then at some point you're going to fall off the earth? What is it within our spirit that continues to have us explore? Because we are explorers. And there is more. More love. Truly, to get free is why we become a mystic. To get free. To be able to meet our problems with solution. Not with more questions about the problems or jumping on board, or let me get more involved in the problem, but turning our attention away from the problem to the solution. What the world needs now are more mystics. Folks that are simply living in the present. So how do we do it? Silence and solitude, I already mentioned it. Hermetically sealed times of stillness and silence in which we know the power and the presence. This isn't to say also, and you know this, I really don't even need, this isn't to say don't listen to your podcasts, don't listen to your news. Don't listen to the places where you get information, but meet it with a spiritual authority. Meet it with a lens that allows us to maintain our connection to the Spirit. You know what it's like, what the difference is when I get caught up in a piece of news or caught up in something and I get gripped by fear. That isn't a fun feeling, is it? None of us like that, being gripped by fear. The world's coming to an end. It's all falling apart. And how many times have we been afraid that the world's going to come to an end? Many, 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 many times. Silence and solitude. The power of our attention. Do we know how important and sacred the power of our attention is? Where are we putting our attention? Where am I putting my attention? In my personal relationships, with regards to my money, with regards to my health. Is my attention always on how bad my foot is or how bad my knee is, or my attention on the healing powers, the healing waters that live within us, and that there's something I can do about it? A doctor's appointment, whatever it might be, but to begin to tell the story about how beautiful our lives are and not how challenging they are over and over again. Because there's part of us that really loves to get caught up in the drama too, right? Oh, drama. It's the same thing as this. Drama, drama, drama. And there's that lowly human side of us, and I'm saying the lowly aspect of our humanity that loves to be caught up in the drama. But a mystic is caught up in the presence. Inner surrender. What am I surrendering to? Am I allowing God to meet my life where it is, or am I trying to push the river? There's something beautiful about your life exactly the way it is right now. Do you believe that? There are many things beautiful about exactly the way your life is right now. Do you believe that? Many things that are beautiful about it. And so we might have our attention sometimes be on, well, I'd like to have a healing here, or I'd like to have more of this or more of that. Are we welcoming the presence to meet us where we are? Are we feeling like our willpower is getting involved? I know the answer. My ego knows the answer. And more often than not, from my experience, when I follow that, when I'm on that course of action, I find myself butting up against more walls. Rather than the presence and power of grace moving through me, the power of grace moving through each one of us to begin to reveal solution. A mystic is inwardly surrender. Sometimes that's scary because as human beings with brains, we are problem solvers, aren't we? One of the biggest problems we can solve is figuring out how to surrender. Is figuring out how to surrender, and that comes with listening, and it comes with stillness. Stillness and silence aren't sexy. Not going to sell a lot of books. Get still today. Be still the rest of your life. Be still and all your answers will come to you. No, it's more like, get tough, go get it, go rah, 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 sis, boom, bah, let's go. Power through life, right? But what about becoming a magnet, a mystical magnet for your good to be drawn unto you? And that's not to say that all you do is sit on the couch and pray. No, we move from prayer to performance. We move from silence to action. And when we hear the voice of God, the clarity, and yes, you can hear the voice of the Spirit, and it probably will not show up like as a, this is what you should do. It's subtle movement, but the quieter I am, the stiller I am, the more still that I am, the more I can hear, the more I can sense, the more I can feel, the more I'm in tune with the direction of my heart. This is an inner surrender. The more I can trust that this is the right activity for my life. This is the right movement. This is right action. Prayer and silence get me out of the way. Prayer, fidelity to my prayer life, where I'm actually moving my mind from being separate to being one. How else do we become a mystic? This is as old in New Thought teachings as it gets, but we must heal our sense of separation. That somehow I am here in the presence and power of God is someplace other than where I am. To heal our sense of separation. The last thing I'd like to share with you as a mystic and what it means to walk the mystical path is that the most powerful presence that exists, and another word for God, another word for the Spirit, another word for that I am presence is what? What's the word? Love. Love. To actually become our full-time employment to be a path of love. And what does it mean to love? What does it mean to give? What does it mean to serve? What does it mean to share? What does it mean to be compassionate? What does it mean to gaze upon another? And instead of be defensive, instead of moving into a fighting stance or a more than or a less than stance, is a loving stance. To love. And how that shows up for each one of us individually. What does it mean to love? What does it mean to love? Is it that great next photograph that you can put up on the wall that someone can gaze upon and say, oh, I see the love in that picture? Is it the next great poem? Is it the next word that comes out of your mouth at the checkout line at the grocery store? Is it the next interaction is an opportunity to love, to love? And what does it mean to love? And I want to leave that one right there. Because we have as many sermons on love, we have as many expressions on love, we have as many devotions to love as we do people in the room. What does love mean to you? And what does that have to do with being a mystic? I want to leave you with that this week. What's love got to do with it? And how does that show up in your life? The assignment this week in becoming a mystic, the world needs you to experience your inner communion with the Spirit, with the I Am presence, so that you have your own burning bush moment, that you have your own experience of being the instrument through which the divine plays itself into existence. You have your own experience of what it means to be an instrument of love. You have your own experience of what it means to be a presence of healing, to be of service, to be in lockstep with the presence and power and the love of God. This is what is before us this week. And never forget that all that's ever changed anything in the history of the world is a small group of committed people. A small group. I see a small group of committed people before me this morning. And do we believe that that could change the environment that we live within? Absolutely. A presence of love, a presence of belonging, a presence of community, a presence of joy, and that each one of us becomes an emission of that, an emitter of that, right? When you go in to get your emissions checked, we want to know that you're leaking love, right? So let's take a deep breath, seal this with a prayer. Take a deep breath and seal this with a prayer. Oh, man. At the center of our being, at the center of our being, at the center of our body, at the center of our physical body, there's the heart. At the center of our physical body is the brain. It's two centers that guide and direct, and we don't have anything to do with it. Oh, man, we feel we may read a book, we pray, we breathe, and yet the heart knows exactly how to pump the blood and where it needs to go, and the brain knows what it must do to keep equilibrium and keep things intact. So it is with the Spirit, that we get out of the way. And in our practice, we become mystical. We become communicators with the Spirit. We become communicators with the essence. We become one with, we heal the sense, the ignorance, the idea of there being two things happening, there being a separation, and we align ourselves with the good that is at the center of us, and we become great solutions. So any problem that we have, we simply turn our attention away from it to solution. There is one power and presence, the living Spirit of God Almighty, that is being itself as each one of us. And the great prayer that is on our hearts, whatever that problem was that we contemplated at the beginning, we now begin to turn our attention to solution. We turn our attention to love and how love leads the way, how love heals today and this week. And so our assignment is to be more loving, to be mystical in our connection, to be the air through which moves through us, and what is recycled and what's cycled through us is a song of love, a poem of love, a masterpiece of love through our livingness. Living works of art. Look at that work of art walking down the street, so graceful, so beautiful. The movement, the joy, emission, emitting goodness, a vibration. You know what it's like to be in the vibration of somebody who's in lockstep with love, who's in lockstep with joy. We are seeking to be that presence and power. I'm grateful for this word. I'm grateful for the prayer that we speak, for the community that we experience together now as a mighty group. We transform the consciousness not only of our own lives, but of the community within which we live. This is service. I'm grateful for this time. I call it good, and so it is.